how big can this get, right? So you've gone from about $500 million to $13.2 billion. Is this a $100 billion opportunity? Is it a $1 trillion opportunity?
Yeah.
How big do you think it can get?
We think it's far larger than $1 trillion opportunity. Our view is really that if today, in some ways, the total addressable market for something like a USDC is, in our view, it's M2. So M2 today globally is about $100 trillion. And so that's commercial bank money. That's electronic money in the traditional commercial bank form factor. We believe that digital currency form factors are going to be superior to traditional commercial bank or ACH money form factors. And so over a long period of time, we think that there is a share shift. There's a share shift to both businesses, individuals, others wanting to keep value in stablecoin models. And so we certainly think it has the ability to get into the trillions. If you look at dollar money markets today, I think they're about 5 trillion. So I think there's a lot of ways to look at that. And this is like, digitization of music. How big was the market for digital music back when everyone had CDs or streaming television or, long tail e-commerce markets like Amazon or eBay. All of these, I think, are very, very large, and you just have to pick your time frame, right? Is it $1 trillion in 5 years? Is it $5 trillion in 10 years? But I think about it as the share shift that will take place into this natively form factor of digital money over a 5 to 10 year period. It should get to, I think, 10% of what the TAM might be today.
Do you feel like digital currencies in general are simply going to replace what you call ACH money? Or do you think that they're more market expanding? And kind of the corollary for those that are listening is essentially Uber. You could have said, hey, they're going to disrupt taxis. Or you could have said, no, they're actually going to expand the market. And what's going to happen is a lot of people aren't going to own cars because they're just going to Uber everywhere. And so how do you view that with these digital currencies versus ACH?
Yeah, so I think the way I look at it is twofold. I think one is in terms of like the actual like money supply, like M1 or M0, right? We don't really impact that, right? So that is still sovereign debt, basically, right? So we don't impact that. This is just a form factor on top of that. Do I think that it will be market expanding? Yes, but in the following way. Just like, I used to use this example, like when the web came about, I used to make this argument. This is my first company was tools for building web applications, right? That the net world output of software created was going to grow exponentially because it's going to be basically instantly, it's going to be cheap to basically distribute software through browsers. Or when email came out, like the net world output of text-based communications exploded like enormously. And so as you've had basically open networks that allow, in historical, terms on the internet, data to flow instantly for free, basically the volume of activity increased dramatically. And so my view is very similar, that essentially digital currency native payments infrastructure over time will drive the cost of payments to zero. So the ability to sort of charge a fee to move value, or the ability to charge a business a fee for them to receive value, will approach zero over time. And as you reduce friction, you increase speed, you increase velocity. It's every internet device in the world connected to this, and you have that kind of speed and velocity of the internet. The net world output of payments will increase exponentially. So I actually do think it's market expanding in terms of the volume, just overall transaction volume in the global economy will increase as a result of digital currency.
That makes sense. And I think one of the big questions that people don't understand and ask me to ask is when you think of a digital currency today, you are essentially a private company who has taken a fiat currency and you're digitizing it, right? And obviously the market wants this. You've grown incredibly fast. But now there's a lot of central banks that are talking about creating their own digital currencies. The idea would be same monetary policy, just this new technology form factor. And whether it's a digital dollar, euro, yen, won, name your currency, they essentially would end up in what is a very similar place to where USDC is today for the digital dollar. Do you look at that as competition? Is that something where there's a partnership opportunity? Is that something where maybe actually the US government, central bank, treasury, et cetera, should just adopt USDC? Like, how do you see that playing out as they kind of further explore this idea?
Yeah, I mean, lots of things to talk about there. So just maybe to answer your last question first, we absolutely see opportunities to partner with national governments around the world. And we believe that, open source, open internet, technical innovation, public chain innovation, all of the velocity of things that are happening with that, combined with, kind of technology driven private sector work, is moving at an incredible velocity. It's moving very, very fast. It's going to move way faster than government sponsored R&D initiatives. And so ultimately, I do think that leads to a place where there is real collaboration. But I think to step back though, I think, a lot of times people don't really realize that electronic money today, virtually everywhere in the world, is issued by the private sector. So when you think about, electronic wire money, which is the first form of electronic money, that's issued by commercial banks. Central banks sort of approve this as an electronic medium, but it's run by a consortium of private companies. It's run by a consortium of private companies in an organization called SWIFT. SWIFT is hundreds or thousands of private sector firms collaborating on technical standards and interoperability. You take the most popular form of electronic money that we have today, which is credit cards and debit cards. That's privately issued electronic money. It is associations and consortiums of private sector actors getting together to define standards and interoperability, which is exactly what the card associations were born to do. And it's all privately issued. ACH money is the same thing. ACH networks are consortium of private sector actors coming up with common standards for bank-to-bank transfer. It's privately issued money. So the world today is consortiums of open standards or of standards, at least interoperability standards and privately issued models. That's worked pretty well for most of the world. Now, even in China, where there's obviously a lot of attention on the digital yuan, I think if you really look closely, there's two things going on. One is China leapfrogged the entire world in privately issued electronic money in terms of digital money. Alipay and Tencent and WeChat Pay, 1 billion people were using these as privately issued electronic money on a massive scale. Now, in a place like China, that was viewed as too much unchecked private power. And so the development of the digital yuan is largely a response to the unchecked private power of these very, very, very large private institutions. And you're seeing that kind of get reined in a variety of ways. And so China's a little bit unique in that, the government's largely run by engineers and they build stuff, like they build a lot of things. And that's not really the model in most of the Western capitalist and many other markets in the world, where it really is technology innovation, entrepreneurial innovation, private sector actors, free market, open, competitive environments. That's what has allowed innovation to thrive in the capitalist world, or at least the democratic capitalist world. And I think that will continue to serve this, many parts of the world really, really well. And so again, coming back to the last question again, I think this creates tremendous opportunity for consortiums like Center Consortium, which defines the self-governance and regulatory and compliance frameworks around USDC, to really grow, take on more members, more involvement, et cetera.
And so when you think about some of the recent partnerships, I think you guys have one with Visa, a few banks. Is that essentially what you're trying to do, is build these consortiums so that you can create a lot of the buy-in around those standards, and that's kind of the viewpoint and direction you're headed? Or should we think about those partnerships in a different way?
Well, so our partnership with Visa is a specific commercial partnership aimed at driving adoption of USDC in a number of ways that are kind of compatible with the existing Visa network and their network of issuers and merchants. I think we're seeing some really good initial traction with that. I think in general, Circle is focused on encouraging and supporting and developing this broader open ecosystem. The beauty of having something like USDC be a public protocol is, You don't need to be part of a consortium to adopt it. Thousands of companies have implemented support for it. They don't need to ask anyone's permission. They can, build a digital wallet, or they're an exchange in Korea, or they're somewhere in the world. They can just connect to the protocol on a public blockchain, and it just works. And so I think one is just continuing to foster that open ecosystem. But yes, I think ultimately you'll see more partnerships with established payments companies, established financial institutions, banks, others that are going to play an active role in the development of this ecosystem.